Brief Captain here. Today, I'll be telling you about the cartoon Megamind. Give us a like if you enjoy our videos. When Megamind was still a baby, and his name was something else, his home planet was swallowed by a black hole. The blue-haired boy's parents placed him and his fish minion in an escape pod and sent them off to find a new home. Other Megaminds from a neighboring planet sent their baby to find a new home, and the two began to rival each other from the cradle. It so happened that they both ended up on Earth. Megamind fell into a prison yard where he was taken in by notorious scoundrels and criminals, while the other baby fell into the home of wealthy and very caring people. Megamind grew up and learned the intricacies of life behind bars, surrounded by criminal talent, while his rival basked in love and care. When it came time to enter school, the blue-haired boy hoped that now everything would change. But when he arrived, everyone's favorite was already here. That same boy from the neighboring planet. Under Earth's sun, he gained the power of Henry Cavill. He could fly, shoot lasers from his eyes, was super strong, super fast, and beloved by all. But how could he compete with such a man? Megamind, of course, tried to win the boy's favor, but all his attempts ended in failure. At some point, he decided that since everyone considered him a villain, that's what he'd be. That's when his villainous persona, Megamind, emerged. As he grew older, his rival became known as Macho Man. The two engaged in epic battles, in which Macho Man always emerged victorious. Megamind used various technological gadgets he invented himself, but Macho Man always managed to escape from the blue-headed man's trap. As a result, Megamind was sent to prison, which was his home. However, he didn't have to stay long, as he had a loyal lackey for whom he had fashioned a body. When the prison director came to give Megamind the watch supposedly given to him by Macho Man, he put it on himself, as prisoners weren't entitled to such gifts. It happened on a significant day for Metro City, when Macho Man was being honored and a museum was opening in his honor. The event was officiated by the superhero's close friend, Roxanne Ricci. Because of his closeness to Macho Man, or perhaps because of her attractive appearance, Megamind had kidnapped Roxanne dozens of times. He planned to kidnap her this time too. After finishing recording the report, she was about to leave, while a cameraman named Hal Stewart, secretly in love with her, was asking Roxanne out on a date. The girl was kidnapped by a servant. Meanwhile, Megamind escaped from prison using a shape-shifting watch. He dragged Roxanne to his secret lair and began to tell her all sorts of horrors. But she'd seen it all before, and she even grew bored. Meanwhile, Macho Man was enjoying the crowd's adoration. As he was delivering his speech from the stage, Megamind appeared on the giant screens and announced that he had Roxanne. Roxanne immediately revealed Megamind's location, and Macho Man set off to rescue her. But this time, everything went drastically wrong, and even better than Megamind could have imagined. Macho Man found himself trapped inside the observatory, and his blue-haired adversary was preparing to concentrate the sun's energy through the satellite and attack the superhero. And then it turned out that Macho Man's only weakness was the copper of the observatory's dome. He couldn't penetrate it and lost his strength. So when Megamind struck with solar energy, all that remained of Macho Man was his cape and skeleton. For the residents of Metro City, this was an irreparable loss. They grieved, but Megamind and his faithful lackey were overjoyed. Now they would rule the city, commit all sorts of mischief, and get away with it. However, after a few days, Megamind became unbearably bored. His life lost all meaning without Macho Man. He knew that no matter what he did, no one would come and punish him. Megamind realized he lived only in the hope of a new confrontation with Macho Man. It was in his blood, and now it's gone. Megamind goes to the Macho Man Museum to feel sad. After a bit of sadness, he plans to blow it up. But then he hears Roxanne's voice, also grieving for her lost friend. She runs into a museum worker named Bernard. Megamind runs into him too. And when he realizes Roxanne is about to notice him, he shoots Bernard with his dehydrator and copies his appearance. He then walks her to the exit, and she gives him an idea to cope with his longing for Macho Man. He needs to create a new superhero, just as fearless and invincible. At the same time, he must be noble and selfless. Then Megamind will have someone to fight against, and his life will have meaning again. Bluehead gets to work without delay. He collects Macho Man's dandruff from his death cape, extracts the superpower from it, and stores it in a pill. All that's left is to choose the right person and inject them with the pill. However, Roxanne disrupts the plan. She discovers the location of Megamind's secret lair, arrives there with Hell, and calls Bernard to tell him about it. Megamind picks up the phone, and upon learning that Roxanne has arrived, he assumes Bernard's form and tries to get her out of there as quickly as possible. In the process, they accidentally fire a gun, and a superpower pill hits Hell in the nose. The henchman suggested removing the charge using the same gun, but Megamind saw providence in this event. They wouldn't strip Hell of his powers. Instead, they would train him to be a superhero, since to them, he was a blank slate, open to whatever they wanted. Taking the henchman with him, Megamind barged into Hell's home, assumed the persona of Marlon Brando from the 1978 film Superman, and began training the new superhuman. Megamind explained to Hell that he was his cosmic father and had sent him to this planet to learn justice. Now that his superpower had awakened, it was time to learn how to use it. Hell quickly mastered the art, shooting lasers, flying, and becoming invulnerable. While training Hell, Megamind continued dating Roxanne as Bernard. They grew closer and closer, becoming a real couple, but Roxanne also had a positive influence on Megamind. At her instigation, he stopped causing trouble in the city and cleaned up all the trash with his dehydrator. When Hell was ready, Megamind gave him a suit with the letter T on it and gave him the superhero name Titan. What does that mean? That name was the only copyrighted name. Once Megamind began a romantic relationship with Roxanne, he no longer needed the minion. He only got in the way and encouraged him to continue his evil plans. But Megamind simply wanted to be with his loved one. Because of this, he and the minion had a falling out, and the fish-headed one left him. Hell decided to become a superhero to win Roxanne's heart. So, when Megamind gave him a costume, Hell's first order of business was to visit his beloved. He knew he'd have to save her a couple of times first, and then she'd definitely fall in love with him. So Hell threw Roxanne from a great height and then caught her. But for some reason, Roxy didn't appreciate the gesture. Hell took offense and ran away from her. "I'm Titan, not Hell." After that, Roxanne went on a date with Bernard and told him her theory. She figured Megamind had run out of fights, so he'd created a Titan opponent. Meanwhile, Hell followed Roxanne and saw her kissing Bernard in a restaurant. However, he didn't notice that she accidentally flipped the dial on his watch, transforming Bernard into Megamind. Realizing she'd been dating Macho Man's archenemy all this time, Roxanne cursed Megamind for his cunning deceit. She assumed this villain had made her fall in love with him out of the worst of intentions. When she realized he was hoping for reciprocity, she simply left. From that moment on, Megamind decided to become a full-blown villain. He climbed into a huge, controllable robot and went on a rampage through the city. Megamind was sure Titan would show up and they would start fighting. But Titan was sitting at home, playing PlayStation. His apartment was full of stolen goods, and Megamind realized that Hell wasn't as kind as he thought. Hell offers to team up with him and terrorize the city, but Megamind isn't having it. He wants the superhero to confront him, so he tells Hell the truth about himself and Roxanne. Hell loses his temper and tries to kill Megamind. "Lady, take me to jail." "Oh, no, no, no. Straight to the morgue, I guess." He clearly hadn't counted on that, since Macho Man always sent him to jail. Megamind even used a copper dome against Titan, but that didn't work either. It turned out Titan had no weakness to copper. Megamind was forced to hide with Roxanne, who agreed to take him in for a while. She offered to take Titan's power away, but Megamind lost the diffuser gun, along with the invisibility machine. So, he and Roxanne are left to go to Macho Man's secret hideout and find information about his weaknesses. Roxy knows where it is, and when they get there, it turns out Macho Man is alive. He'd deceived everyone by faking his death. At that moment in the observatory, he realized his confrontation with Megamind had lost its former zest. Macho Man no longer wanted to be a superhero, so he pretended the copper made him weaker. And when the observatory exploded, he hurled a skeleton with his cape at Megamind. Hiding in a shelter, he decided to become a musician. Upon learning of Titan, Macho Man refused to return. He is convinced that, if there is evil, good will emerge and vanquish it. Megamind also gave up. "I'm not flying off into the sunset, and I'm not getting the girl." He headed back to prison. Roxanne went off alone to stop the Titan from destroying the city. But she didn't succeed. Hell dragged her up the TV tower and, via television, invited Megamind to save her. Bluehead would have gladly stood up for his beloved, but he was behind bars. Only a lackey could save him. Hearing news about Titan, he showed up at the prison disguised as the director and freed his master. "Good luck, boys. If I'm going to die, I'll do it with a bang." Megamind, prepared, arrived and rescued Roxanne. Just as Titan was about to kill him, Macho Man appeared and drove off the new supervillain. Roxanne realized that Megamind was actually a minion posing as him, and it was Megamind himself who had donned the Macho Man guise. However, Hell, too, saw through the deception. He returned to kill Megamind. Roxanne told Bluehead where his invisible machine was, and he found his diffuser gun. But it was too late. Titan had already launched it into the stratosphere and was slowly advancing on Roxanne. As he fell, Megamind figured out how to turn himself into a dehydrated cube. When he hit the fountain, he transformed back into a human, unscathed, and he drained Titan of all his superpowers. From that moment on, the residents of Metro City fell in love with Megamind. He became a worthy replacement for Macho Man. Hell was sent to prison. Sometime later, while the servant was washing his master's dirty clothes, he discovered Bernard lying dehydrated in Megamind's pocket. When he fell into the water, he transformed into a human.